Well, have a seat. We're just a little cozy group. This is Holly, and your name?
Hi. They're up here to tell us that if you're not afraid of water.
Sorry, say. Altera. Okay. And well, you know, we're going to be talking about resources. And okay, so I'm going to do. I have this diagram, and I don't know if this is filming. I'm going to assume it already is. Hello, everybody. Sorry if you've been listening to our personal discussions. I'm gonna start. I wonder, can I? No, I can't turn it on its side. So I've got this diagram. Okay, it looks kind of crazy from here, and on camera it looks like just a piece of paper. So I'm going to basically point out to you guys what. I'm left-handed, so I'm going to have to do it this way. If we're talking about resources, I've created this thing called it's a system support map. It's not. I was in a family scholar program through the Association of Maternal Child Health Programs. Oh, by the way, my name is Jennifer Griffen. I don't think I did say what that was. My name is Jennifer Griffen. I'm with the LGS Foundation. Anyhow, the family scholar program through the Association of Maternal Child Health Programs, or AMCHIP. They chose a select group of us from across the country, and we did a lot of advocacy training, and we learned about all kinds of systems things. And one of the things we did was this version of a system support map, and you can use this for just about anything. And in this case, it's like a bullseye. It's a bunch of circles, and in the center, you've got, like, you know, me, right? And then I'm just Jen, mom, and hopefully I'll have enough room. And just Jen, mom, right? Amazing Jen, mom. And then out on the next circle, you would put your role or your identity. And it is, and it's like, you know, mother of, I have 3 children, but in this, for the purposes of this support map, it's mother of Theo. Whoops, Theo. He's a 17-year-old with LGS, Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. Okay? So that is, so far, that's who I am. And then you go out here, and the next circle, you'll do your most important responsibilities, right? So we all have different responsibilities, but the way I see it, I have my most important responsibilities are home, personal safety, education, recreation, health, of course, and then the all-important financial, you know. So that's that system support map. And I always do everything in a different color. So it's like, you know, and different fonts and different, you know, just to make it really colorful and crazy looking. And then out here, I start doing the general needs for each one of these. For each one of these, right? So then I'll start having, you know, for home, of course, I've got, you know, I've got mom's house, and I'm divorced, so there's also dad's house. For safety, I've got, you know, supervision, constant supervision, equipment, environment. Like in my house, I have everything, like all the floors are padded, so I put down mats all over the place. I have gates so that my son can't get from one room to the next without somebody knowing about it, because he's very much like a bull in a china shop. He'll knock everything over, break things. He does that a lot, because his awareness of his environment is pretty limited. And of course, special ed for the for education. And then recreation, you can do, you know, who knows? Like my son does, he thrives outdoors, right? So any kind of outdoor opportunities. And then also Also, sports opportunities. You know, any kind of team sports, adaptive sports. But of course, health, you've got things like therapies and diet. And you see all the lines that are going to everything here, right? Specialists. And then for finances, well, yeah, which ones? The dentist, yeah. Well, that actually goes into the next circle. So for finances, you've got things like, you know, basic needs, right? Basic money for basic needs. And then you've got finances for specialized needs. Right, okay? And then when you go out to this circle, then it's going to be, so for I'm not even going to do all of them because then it gets into the crazy things. Then you get into the specifics. Like for therapies, you'll do, like for therapy, for example, I can do OT, PT, speech, APE, vision therapy, orientation and mobility, ABA therapies, like all the different therapies that our kids have, right? And then for sports opportunities, there could be Special Olympics or Challenger Baseball or all of the different, whatever exists in your community, adaptive parks and recreation programs. And for, let me see, what's another one that has a lot? Oh, equipment, right? So for personal safety equipment, you've got a helmet with a face mask, a helmet without a face mask, a wheelchair, a stander, a walker, or what else do we have? We have the adaptive feeding chair. We're going to get an adaptive toilet, like a commode, you know, and you can go on and on and on and on. So you've got all kinds of things for all of these. Each of these has 3 or 4 attachments to it. So then it looks like this crazy mess right here, and I'll give you both a copy of one of these. So on the outside of it, you leave the outside blank, and you just call this wish list. And this could be whatever you're wishing for. I live in a very expensive community. I don't own my home, I rent, you know. My wish list, I wish to own my own home one day. I wish there's a home for my son to live in one day. I wish there's going to be, you know, caring caregivers to help manage his care because he's about 6 inches taller than me and broad-shouldered and muscular. He's 17. He has just taken me down left and right. I mean, he is it's very clear that I'm not going to be able to take care of him for long, right? And then over here in finances in my wish list, I put, you know, win a lottery, because that's about what it'll take. But you can put all kinds of things outside this circle, and then you create this nice little colorful document. And if somebody asks you, you know, what do you do with your day? I do this and work, right? I say, well, this is my life. Right? This is my life, and it's a really important thing. I think it's a great thing to give medical professionals because we love our doctors most of the time, right? Because we search high and low for the right person. And when we get into that really good fit with a doctor, what we really want to do is, you know, share our lives with them so that they know more than just the seizure. You know, this is what I'm contending with. I mean, sleepless nights and, you know, like constipation is huge in our community. Or actually either direction with poop is big in our community, right? Yeah. That's it. And then, of course, you were talking about this yesterday, dentists. You know, you add that to your healthcare providers. And that's another thing. In health, you don't just have, you have a line that goes to your general practitioner, but then you have a line that goes to your neurologist, your gastroenterologist, your cardiologist, your special dentist, you know, somebody who will anesthetize them in their office. What else do I have here? I have a neuro-ophthalmologist for my son, an endocrinologist. So we have a lot of ologists in our lives, right? So that's boom, 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 boom. So for the purposes of this talk, though, I sort of have developed just a few resources for each one of the main most important responsibilities, because it really differs from state to state. I'm here in California, and we have a regional center system. And in the regional center system, your child has to be institutionally deemed, which is a really weird kind of ugly type of terminology. And when they're institutionally deemed, it means they're eligible for a Medicaid waiver. And then when you get the waiver, you can be eligible for Medicaid, Medi-Cal, as it's known in California, as a secondary insurance to pay for, and some use it, some need it as a primary, but my son has his insurance, his primary insurance through his dad, and then his secondary insurance, Medi-Cal, pays for a lot of, things like co-pays, and and then there's also other financial providers in California like CCS, which is California Children's Services. That's only up until age 21. And, so families, though, I'm so surprised at how often families will come to me and I'll tell them about a resource that they really should know about. But the word should is one of my least favorite words in the English language, because the only reason they should know about it is that somebody should have told them. It's not like it's their fault that they don't know it, because how would we know if we've never heard of it, right? Well, regional center, so our regional center, everybody has a service coordinator who hopefully provides them with some information, but they don't always, right? And you guys are a perfect case in point, because there's something called in-home supportive services. Have you ever? You're not in California, right? So no. California has something called IHSS. So if your child is, and this is the thing, they have to be institutionally deemed, receiving the Medicaid waiver. They have to be a regional center client with like a lifelong developmental disability, and then they are eligible for something called IHSS, in-home support services. That is a program that you can pay yourself to care for your child, or you can pay somebody else to care for your child, and they come and they'll do an assessment, and then in that assessment they'll determine, based on everything they see, they'll come up with this magic number that is based on all the different needs. How many hours you spend doing laundry, how many hours you spend keeping them safe. Protective supervision is actually, you can get the maximum number of hours through protective supervision, and a lot of families are confused by that, because they'll think that seizures automatically means they need to have protective supervision, and seizures are medical supervision, because that's something that you can't predict. There are some people who have one seizure a year, and then there are some and in the LGS community, it's like have 50 to 100 a day. So really, you can't, it's not something you know. But the protective supervision, like in my case, the protective supervision comes from the fact that my son has very limited awareness of his surroundings. So he might just walk into a room and put his hand on a hot stove, right? Or he might walk into a room and just because he's so big, just take down a television or something right on top of him. He needs to be constantly monitored. One-on-one 24-hour care. He's in the bath. He needs to be supervised in the bath. Not because of the seizures, even though that's one of the main reasons why I'm watching him, is so that he doesn't have a seizure in the bath and drown. But it's really because he just randomly stands up. But he didn't start walking till he was 6, so he's a very kind of walks with a lot of wobbliness. He's not going to be able to stand up in a slippery bathtub, and then he goes face down, and then boom, right? So those are the kinds of things that can get you in-home supportive services in California. Different states, though, have something, and probably Canada has, I'm not sure, but probably something similar, where there is a certain amount of funding, because if we look at the California system started through something, it's called the Lanterman Act, and it was in 1969. There was just, a group of moms who paid a visit to their local institution and said, oh, God forbid I can't put my child in this place. And they went and they bothered their local assembly member or senator, Frank Lanterman, and they jumped on the elevator with him and hounded him and, talked to him, and he backed this bill, and it was, it really dismantled all the institutions in California and created this regional center system. And it's an entitlement program, and it is the only entitlement program for people with disabilities, I believe, in the country. So other states might have a regional center system, but there are waiting lists for it, whereas here, if you're eligible, you're in. It doesn't mean that you're going to get all the services, because ultimately, when it comes to caregivers and things like that, we, if my son, when he's 22 and graduates from high school, or from the school system, he'll graduate from high school after 12th grade, but then he'll continue in the school system until he's 22. Then it's up to us what's going to happen to him, and so I'll probably put him in a day program. Well, the day programs have waiting lists, so I could be waiting for years. He's been on a waiting list since he was 15, because I know that even when he's 22, he may still be on that waiting list. So, the system was created, the IHSS part was kind of a response to the fact that the state is saving a lot of money, right, from dismantling these institutions. And the families are, yes, it's wonderful that we can have community-based services and we can raise our kids at home in their communities, and so they can be known and loved and appreciated and included. But really, the burden of work on the family members can be some parents, most parents, particularly with kids with significant needs like those with LGS, they can't work because we can't count on qualified caregivers to assist us with our kids. So, or injuries, and then of course we have, or they'll quit. Yeah, it's very hard. You get a revolving door of people. Yeah, that's so true. It's
so true. Yes.
Yeah, it's true. The revolving door of caregivers, or even IHSS. Only pays them so much. And I'd say that we also get respite for my son, all of these things, but what they pay is kind of, respite pays $12 an hour or something like that. Yeah. So our caregivers charge a minimum of $20 an hour. So that's, that other $8 is coming out of my pocket, right? That's just the way it's going to be. So if I'm going to be leaving my son, it better be worth it, right? So, and if I'm just going to be, the good thing is the good thing is I'm divorced. The good thing is I'm divorced, and his father and I, we co-parent well, so right now he's with his dad, but it's not what the kind of, if this was a room full of people, it's not exactly the advice I would be giving. Here's a great resource: get a divorce, and then you get every other week off or something. Yeah, no, that's not going to work. But I would say that, so I'll give you guys these things after I'm finished, but some of the, so these are some of the, I broke down each one of these to financial. I talked about Medicaid waivers, and there are different waiver programs with state breakdowns. So depending, I don't know how it looks in all 50 states. I know how it looks in California. Or I would say, if somebody called me from, Nebraska or something and said, what do I do? I'll say, well, go to kidswaivers.org, and they can tell you how, they can have links to the resources in your state that are specific to your state. So, and Medicaid.gov as well. And then, of course, I have in-home supportive services here for people in California, and that's through the Department of Developmental Services, DDS.ca.gov. I'm going to give you all of this. It has all of this stuff on it. And then there's certain things like Partnership for Prescription Assistance. And those are websites where, you know, some people need help paying for some of their prescriptions. We're pretty good in California with getting most of our medications paid for, but some states, and some medications as well, there may be extreme costs attached to some of those meds. So there are prescription assistance organizations that can help people find, you know, a little help. And frankly, there are a lot of places, there are a lot of resources in the EXPO out there as well that, like the Danny Did Foundation, I'm probably going to repeat it again later on, Chelsea Hutchison, you know, they help give a lot of people financing to come here. So there's a lot of great little private nonprofits that are very helpful. So as far as health goes, what I really focused on, because the first part of it was there are volunteer pilot organizations like Angel Flight Soars, Angel Flight East, Angel Flight West, Angel Flight Southwest. I think there's all these different Angel Flight organizations. These are pilots who volunteer their time to fly people to specialist appointments in other states and other parts of the country. So the only thing about the Angel Flight program is I do believe you have to be ambulatory, so they can't put, wheelchairs. But not all of our family members are non-ambulatory, so it's good for those. But there's also Miracle Flights that's out here. They're really good at providing financial assistance for flights. And sometimes sometimes you need a lot of specialty care on that flight as well. So there are places out there. And then other organizations like the Pacer Center, the First Hand Foundation, and NORD, they have health assistance and good information on different, there are different healthcare organizations that have a lot of assistance in them as well. Now, when I move on to personal safety, some of the things that I talked about, and maybe you guys would have some information here as well, is, I know a lot of kids with LGS and epilepsy in general wear helmets, right? And so the majority, pardon? He doesn't take off his helmet. He has two helmets, one with a face mask and one without, because he can walk a little bit. So when he's walking, he's a bit of a danger to himself, particularly if there are hard surfaces. He doesn't have as many drop attacks as he used to, but if he has a drop seizure and he's in front of the tile or something, then we need to have that on him. And he loves to stand at the sink and just run the water, and he just goes like this with his left hand, just splashes the water. He could do that. So I always do a slow trickle because I live in California, and he is the cause of the drought. I'm pretty sure, but he just loves his water. So, and we're gonna give me a high water bill. It's like, okay, I've got to trickle, but also he could just trip and fall or have a seizure or something, right, and hit his face. So sometimes he'll get tired of it and he'll try to take the face mask one off, but the other one he leaves on. We're grateful for that. Your sister? Mm-mm.
Oh, no, she takes it off and throws it across the room.
Oh.
She's like, no.
Oh, dear.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's sad. That's like we have those kinds of there's all this stuff for us, and yet there's not much we can do because if they're not going to, it's just like the medications. Some kids, won't take their medications. And these are the kind of little resources, right, that people want to hear about that they usually get from other parents. They don't get it from their doctor or anybody else, like, how do I get my child to take his medication? The pill crushers, sure, stick it in some yogurt, fine. But some of those, some of those lovely kids are just so smart, and they're really like, I know there's a pill in there, puh, and they're going to spit it out. So, you know, we have to sometimes play a lot of interesting games, or, yeah, so true. Well, so the Danmar helmet is kind of the most common one that you'll see around, Danmar product. Another one that I like is OptiCool headgear. It has, apparently it has like, you can put like little cool packs inside of it, because especially in, you know, Southern California, when it gets really, really hot, our kids will sometimes have more seizures, you know, and so that's really great. Convade, of course, you know, we should all take out stock in Convade, because that is the wheelchairs that you'll see. I would say the majority of wheelchairs, or they look like strollers. They look like big strollers. Yeah, Convade. Yeah, CONVAID. I'll give you this. They're, you know, this seems to be the popular chair that so many of our guys have. They have ones that tilt back. They're not the only product out there, and frankly, my son has always had one. He's always getting a Convade, replacing an old Convade with a new Convade. They break down because, you know, my big dude who loves to jump up and down when he's excited. I don't think the shocks are really good in them or something, because a couple weeks ago one of the tires just kind of went, and it just kind of fell off, and the handles sometimes fall, you know, and then try to find somebody to fix it. And then here's an interesting thing. If you're you know, you require insurance to pay for a lot of this equipment, and so you go through your insurance company, you get the medical justification letter and a prescription from your doctor and all of the things that you need, then you get your piece of equipment. Well, if something breaks and you phone the manufacturer and you say, hey, I need a new handlebar or a new couple of wheels, you can either pay for it out of pocket or go through your insurance again. And we all know how speedy insurance companies aren't, right? So it's very much, you know, so we ended up just paying for the wheels, and hopefully and then you just try to get somebody to reimburse it afterwards, but the immediate need is we need a wheel. Right. That's it, right? Yeah. And then there's some really good general info on abilities.com, like just general stuff on different resources like durable medical equipment and stuff. So that's a really good one too. And then of course Rifton is another RIFTON, Rifton.com. They have things like gait trainers and other types of durable medical equipment. So that is in the equipment end of things. I don't know if any of you, like, please pipe in if you have other resources that, how is it in Canada as far as access to equipment?
Sure, it's like it's different background. So I'm not a parent. I work in communications with Child Neurology Foundation. So I know some of the stuff, but like as in depth as some of our like programs or resource folks. In Canada, it depends on the province.
Right.
And I know that like right now, the government in Ontario has really cut a lot of funding. To help our families.
I have heard that.
And yeah, I'm sure some of the same kind of dance, like if you have, you know, basic medical care is covered, but additional medical care, like most people have extended health care to cover, like physiotherapy and other stuff like that. So I think it's probably very similar in like really having to know, like if you get this diagnosis, then you can get these resources at school. If you get this diagnosis, then you can like access this program if there was no wait list to pay for some medical devices. Yeah, I know it's super challenging. Like I worked for a nonprofit for people with spinal cord injuries for a year, and getting like replacement chairs and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
They're so expensive, and getting, you know, housing that is accessible is really challenging. And sometimes you can get some compensation for that, but like you're saying with caregivers, who are compensated $12 an hour, like the stipend that you might get for housing is like $700 a month. Well, in Vancouver, you can't.
Yeah, you can't do. Yeah, Toronto is the same. I know that. Yeah.
In like social housing for stuff, like
yeah.
it's just not a thing. So, yeah, I'm sure that there are some very similar challenges.
Right. Yeah, and it's Yeah, housing is a really, really big struggle, and I know as my son gets older, I have to really start thinking of the adult world much more.
Like, I'm sure that that's like,
Yeah.
and the same in Vancouver, the housing market is so expensive. Like,
Yep.
I'm never going to buy a house in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And if you have, a child who might not be worth returning and stuff like that, it's like an added thing to worry about.
It's so true. It's so true. I mean, you wonder, well, I mean, in California, they'll be eligible for something called Section 8 housing, or they'd be eligible for Section 8. Like if your sister could be eligible for Section 8, or there are options. Like you would speak with your regional center service coordinator about it, and depending on their level of need, though, I mean, so a lot of our kids can't live independently or live like in assisted or supported living facilities, but like my son will have to be in some sort of a group home, or if we're lucky enough to buy him a house at some point, then we could have that house be available to maybe 2 or 3 other people with disabilities that are fully staffed. That kind of thing you could do. But Section 8 housing, which does pay for, some people with disabilities are in Section 8 housing, have waiting lists that are so long, like 5 years, 8 years, or whatever, that the waiting lists themselves shut down. And they will not reopen that waiting list until they start getting the people on the waiting list knocked down a bit. And then they open up the waiting list. So there's kind of like not a waiting list for the waiting list, but there's a wait to get on the waiting list. So, and who knows, you just have to, and then that's another thing, you have to be really vigilant. You have to be watching for it and, staying prepared for when these waiting lists are going to open up and spaces for the waiting list are going to become available, which is crazy when you think about it. But so we really don't have a lot. I think the developmental services system is going to be, it's been under attack for years, but and under-supported, underfunded, everything, right? So something has to change. And that's why I encourage families to, I could tell you about I could show you my crazy system support map, and I could show you what my crazy life looks like, and I could tell you all those long, drawn-out, boring stories of all the battles I've been having with insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies and all kinds of stuff intensely this year for some reason, more than ever, but ongoing for the last 17, and denials and, appeals and all of that kind of stuff. But it's really, unless we all sort of mobilize ourselves and advocate, that's a training that I think we really need to have in our community. That is for some other talk. But I really think that we all need to know how to comfortably share our stories and have our voices heard, because we are not, we're just fading away. And a lot of us with nonverbal kids, for example, are definitely not, we have to be their voice, right? So that's the way that goes. Hi, join us, thank you. We're just talking about some different resources, and I think we were going to move on to some recreation resources for, so our loved ones who have, special circumstances, particularly this talk is geared towards those who have the more severe epilepsies that have lots of other, that are contending with a lot of other medical conditions as well, and nonverbal or wheelchair users, or nonstop seizures that are never ending and that kind of thing. It's really hard to send them. Somebody was talking earlier today about epilepsy camps. But we can't send our kids to epilepsy camps because they have too much epilepsy. They have too. It's really quite. They're so severe that what they require is more. They need to have one-to-one care. So a lot of I think it was the Epilepsy Support Network. They did a really interesting talk at lunch, and I didn't know this, and I think it's great. They have these camps for kids with epilepsy that our kids couldn't go to, or my child couldn't go to, But then they also have these weekend camps that are more one-on-one. And I thought, well, that would be wonderful to have just somewhere in the summer to be able to take our kids, because, you know, that's why, you know, you've got to look at the center of this bullseye here is me, right? I have to be responsible for, just to quickly sum this up, this is like me, my role, which is the mother of my child, the most important responsibilities that I have, which are like home and safety and education and all of that. And then here, these are like the general needs for my, for each one of these responsibilities. And then out here are some of the resources for each one of those general needs, for each one of those resources. And then out here is a wish list. But I'm really, it's like I'm running, I'm a CEO of like a little organization that that nobody else wants the job, apparently. And, you know, there's so many of us, and it's very isolating for families as well. So we want, and we're terrified of leaving our kids behind with very little quality of life. You know, it's, I always say I don't want somebody to just care for my child, I want them to care about him. I want people who work with him to say, you know, oh, let's go to the beach today because Theo loves the water and he'll love going to the beach. Like having his needs and what makes him happy be a really important thing. And I think that, you know, all of there are little activities out there. I know that Challenger Baseball is something that exists, and it's through Little League in where I live. It's a division of Little League, and I think it's a division of Little League nationally as well. So our kids, you know, can participate in these baseball games every Saturday. My son did it for 9 years, and I was his coach. He did it for 10 years, and I coached for 9 years because I realized that I'm always out there on the field with him anyhow, keeping him, you know, kind of corralling him, that I might as well coach the team. And so I did. And it was not like I'm not exactly a baseball player. I mean, I'm Canadian. I played hockey. You know, I did all of that. I never played baseball. But you know, it's not really, it's kind of baseball-ish, right? And we're learning that all the kids on my team had different needs. And they were all, it was a pretty, it was like a bit of organized chaos, and we'd have volunteers on the field helping to kind of corral some of the kids that thought that they would just run, and you'd say, no, come back, it's a diamond, not a straight line, you know, that kind of stuff. But, you know, that was so much fun because it gave the parents also an opportunity to sit in the stands and watch their kids on a beautiful California sunny Saturday morning, and just, you know, play ball and cheer the kids on and not be isolated. And they, you know, have their community with them. And, you know, we have to continue to connect parents to one another, because without one another, it's, you know, there's the high rate of depression, and it's just, you know, parents don't take care of themselves because they don't feel they deserve it a lot of the time. And, you know, and of course we have an extraordinarily high rate of divorce in the special needs community. I heard somebody today say it was like 80%. 80. That's crazy. I think 50 or 60 or something. But, you know, it's very, very, it's very high. Oh, down to 2 again. Anyhow. So and Special Olympics. Special Olympics is great, but yeah. What's your Special Olympics story? Please share. Do you have one? No? Do you have a Special Olympics?
Yeah. Oh, no, geez, oh, cool.
Did she participate?
She did, but other people were too uncomfortable with her seizures
Uh-huh.
that they asked me if it would be possible, maybe it was actually a very nice community pool in San Diego County in Carlsbad. It was a special ed Olympics. And who was in his own pool, or here, came out of the pool and said it's very frustrating, seeing that we're dealing with charitable esteem.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It was really throwing him off. And I said, well, thank you so much, but it took a lot of work to get here, and there's 4 candidates with special needs that have been waiting for this for like 4 or 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't like my response. So he had quite a fit, and he went to the director of the office, called Office Luda, and let them know that, he specifically swims there at a time where he had peace. But it brought the energy.
It's public
Right.
space.
Yeah.
Right, and everyone has rights. But it's like all these innocent, lighthearted, or, maybe they're behavioral issues adults.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking forward to it, and they're standing there like in bathing suits with undergarments underneath, right?
Yeah.
Not like your average swimmer
Yeah.
who's able to participate.
Totally.
And it like crushed their spirit,
Of course it
right? Because then they know what it's like to be treated decently
Yeah.
and indecently. And so it didn't feel good for anybody.
Yeah.
And, we advocated and we spoke up that instead of that individual having their own life and swimming in another pool, we're not even in the pool with lions. We're just in this pool pretending it's the Olympics, and we've got kid toys, right?
Yeah.
He got out of the pool and he stood there with his arms like this because he was so annoyed.
Wow.
Because
I'm so sorry that was your series.
Yeah, me
It's
too.
different, right?
It's just,
And it's not comfortable for people to be different.
yeah.
And I think that's probably where my voice comes in, because that's where you see me get like, I get protected.
Yeah.
Of course. These are human beings
Mhm.
here. Some of,
Mm-hmm.
what if it were you?
I know.
Any human being.
Yeah.
But I work in hospice care. I
Mm-hmm.
see it every day. People's lives change.
Yeah.
How is anybody with a disability any different than with an ability?
Yeah.
It's just the level of what they're able to do, right?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
so,
I think, for me, I listen to stories like that, and I think all it does is it really highlights the lack of imagination that exists out there, because there are so many. We have a wonderful guy in the LGS community. He loves to run cross country, and he has an interesting way of walking and running. He has, and he's clearly has special needs and everything. But he's always loved, and both of his parents are runners, so he's always been on the cross country team at school. And there was even I think there was a news, I think I'm friends with him on Facebook, they posted like a news story about their son a while back about how the whole cross country team is just embracing him. And they know, and some of them have even hang back, and they sacrifice their time that they're going to, because they just want to run with him. And he's been invited to their houses for team parties and all of that kind of stuff, which for a family member is enormous, because we're so left out often, and it's not. And YouTube is fraught with videos that are really heartwarming videos and stories. I go to schools and I do like Disability Awareness Day, and I'll bring all these videos that I'll find on YouTube of the football team at the local junior high who they had this kid on their team. He was just like the water boy or something. He liked hanging out with football players, and they said, we're going to suit him up and we're going to put him on the field and we're going to surround him and he's going to score a touchdown. So what they did, I love this story, they got to like the 1 yard line and then they just took a knee, and they said, and the parents were wondering, what are you guys doing not scoring the touchdown? And then they went out, they brought him in, they surrounded him, and then they all just pushed him across and his parents were like, oh my gosh, my son just scored a touchdown. I was like, because these kids had the imagination. They knew that they were willing to throw the game if it meant that he couldn't have his moment. And I've seen stories of basketball teams that have done that, and it's just it really, I think it just builds the feeling of goodwill in the community. I think it benefits everybody. Like people will say to me sometimes, strangers. I get this all the time, the strangers that come up to me and they pat me on the shoulder and they say, "You're such a good mom," because I'm just pushing somebody in a wheelchair, and I appreciate that. That's lovely, but I'll look back at them and I'll say, that's because I have a great kid. I'm not like this self-sacrificing saint. I am somebody who's benefiting from from having this child as my son, right? And it's very much something that, my son's always out in the community. We're always out there walking and doing things because they need to know who he is. Of course, this has nothing to do with resources, but hey, I think that it in a way it has to do with resources. We're going off on a wee tangent, but that's okay. It's only us. But I think that although one of my resources is parents, other family members, caregivers, they are your greatest resource. And the more we can build our own community, the more comfortable we all are. I know I live in it's not really, really small Santa Barbara, but it's contained enough that, we have one big street that everybody's kind of on a lot of the time. And it's kind of like the main hub is State Street. So every Saturday I'm on State Street with my son, and there's all the tourists and everything. And I'm always bumping into people I know, and people are always passing us by and saying hi to my son. And I just want people to know he's just a member of your community. And, and especially the kids, I get really happy when I see them just kind of, they just kind of nonchalantly acknowledge him like, "Hey, Theo." And then they keep going about their day. But just saying his name or waving at him and then moving on, that just means that they know who he is. And when they are adults and they have their own children, and I'm either around or not around anymore, hopefully they'll be, Theo will be somebody who's on their radar, and that they're all kind of saying, "Oh, we've known Theo since we were all little kids." And yeah, we all just kind of look out for him, because it's kind of the... But, other parents, though, I certainly, help a lot of families, and they help me. I used to run a support group, and people would come to the support group, and here I am, the facilitator of the group, and somebody would bring a little resource, and I'd say, it would just blow my mind. I'd say, you've just changed my life. What was the name of that? How do I write that down? You can't know everything. Yeah. Yeah. And actually, there's one of my slides. So I did this as a presentation at our last conference, and one of my slides was on general stuff that sounds pretty good, and it's like free things, right? And there's something that's called the complete list of free things and grants for kids with special needs. That's also on the thing I'll give you. And it's a website, and it'll just tell you different tiny nonprofits that offer. Some of them are disease specific, so it might be your child has to have, spinal muscular atrophy or something, but there are a lot of ones that are just kind of general resources. Some have travel tips or advocacy tips, and this was a good one for, the conference that we did in Seattle, because I did not know how much, there are some really great resources for how to plan your travel so that you're not all of a sudden at the gate with, a therapy dog and telling them, well, this child has seizures, and having them freak out because they don't want them to have seizures on your plane. Did you get a doctor's note or any, it's like, no, they don't need a doctor's note, or they may need a doctor's note according to the airline, but you just want to get on a plane and travel.
Yeah, the things that you don't necessarily think of.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, well, my doctor said they're fine, so why would I need to bring, it's not your concern whether I have a note or not.
Yeah. Yeah. and yet somebody suddenly gives you, a little bit of a roadblock, and it's hard enough, every day we're in and out of crisis mode, we don't need the roadblocks. We got plenty. You know, I know that if I look to this day, that there's going to be a whole bunch of different interesting things that are going to crop up. But some of those interesting things are unnecessary, and yet they happened anyhow because you were dealing with somebody who didn't have enough information, and you had to sort of explain things to them again. You feel like you're always kind of out there educating the public, which to a certain degree I'm okay with that, because I figure, well, you know, we don't all know everything, and apparently this is what I'm here to do, right? But there are days when you just want to turn it off and say, I'm done. And you don't deserve an answer. I'm sorry, I can't give you one. It's just, you know, I just can't. But, you know, what else? There was one other one. What was the other? Oh, I know what I was going to talk about. And of course, I didn't bring it. Did you go to the Epidiolex table?
I haven't.
So they have a living. They have a magazine. It has John O'Hurley on the cover.
Is it?
And it.
Like the Greenwich?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we're bringing that to AES.
Oh, good. Okay. Oh, good. Oh, you'll be at AES? So will I. We'll see each other there. Yay. That's the American Epilepsy Society, and it's a big old convention.
Yeah, it's a good time though.
I've never been there. This is my first year. It's in Baltimore this year.
Yeah. Last year was in New Orleans. That was my first one last year in New Orleans. But it's massive.
So I've heard.
It's huge. Yeah. It's really and it's very good. It's very. It's overwhelming, but you have are you going to go to the, you're child neurology. Are you going to go to the thing on the 5th? You're probably running it, right? I'll be there. Yeah, there's going to be yeah, I bet, right? It's going to be is it peer support?
Yeah,
Peer support? No, something.
One of our programs is called the Family Support and Empowerment Program, and we have some peer support specialists. So what it is like a family you can call or email this line, and someone whose child also has a neurological diagnosis and has been through kind of the whole journey, can connect families with other resources. And a lot of other smaller, like disease-specific organizations also either have or are trying to start programs for peer support. So in collaboration with the American Epilepsy Society and a few other partners, we're putting on a day-long workshop at this conference to help train peer support workers so they can have those kind of resources available for different disease states.
I'll be there. I'll be at that.
Something you're just starting.
We've been doing our peer support program for a while, but not like I'm not the resources person, so I know that various organizations have had or are thinking of starting I have newer programs or
It's almost endless, isn't it? Like if you have the right channels to just segue each other.
Yeah. Well, I think that, so when you're supporting families, I think, you know, there's so many things you have to consider, obviously, but one of the first things is to really sort of listen and take families where they're at in their journey, because some people are in full-on crisis mode. Others are in, they just want to talk, right? Just listen. And then other families are just kind of in an information gathering mode where they may want something like this, but this might also overwhelm somebody. I mean, it's meant to overwhelm. It is, but I'm not going to hand it out to some newly diagnosed family and say, here's my crazy life. What do you think? Just think, one day you might be here too. I'm not going to do that to anybody because it's very much, I built this step by step. I just had to walk my little journey, get my little pieces of information and build it up, and then in some cases people are going to be and it's a roller coaster, so you just think like you've got a handle on everything, and then boom, your child hits a transition period, right, where their elementary school's finishing, now we're in junior high, oh my god, or high school is ending and we're in the adult world. Puberty.
Puberty. Also changes delightfully for everyone.
Just like everyone, yeah.
So sometimes has additional changes in terms of like
Behavior,
meds,
yeah,
and all of
seizures, you know, everything kind of, so you're just kind of humming along, right? You're doing, wow, this is the best we've ever been at. And of course, there's always another shoe that'll drop. Not always, but I mean, often another shoe will drop, and all of a sudden you're saying, whoa, this is a new thing. All of a sudden, I don't feel like I'm in the expert world anymore. I feel like I'm now in the new mom world, and it's very much, what are we doing? And who do I turn to? But by then, hopefully, you've kind of built up your tribe so that you can go back to somebody who, I know, where I used to work, I was in like a family resource center doing a lot of parent-to-parent stuff. And, people would call me and I'd work with them closely, and I might go to their child's IEP and be an advocate, and I might, they might come to my support group on a regular basis, and we might have lots and lots of ongoing calls, and then suddenly I stop hearing from them. And I don't take it personally because life takes over, right? And then suddenly, you're at the grocery store or something, and they see you and they go, oh, I've been thinking about you, Jennifer. I really need to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, okay, great, And sometimes you have the talk right there in the frozen food aisle, and you just, or you just schedule something. But, people will come to you when all of a sudden it's like, okay, I thought I had a grip on it, and I was just living my life and raising my other kids and working, and and now something has happened that requires I go back to one of my resources, and you were one of my resources, so here I am. And that's, and it's good to be a resource for a person, but it's also good to have your own resources as well. Yeah. So, and anything else that we maybe didn't talk about? I'll give you these little handouts and do what you want with it.
I learned so much from the system that you showed.
My crazy little picture.
It's not your crazy little picture, because it's so true.
Yeah.
You don't even realize.
Well, I'll give you the nice pretty version.
It's an interesting note that you made to share it with a physician, and I've also heard of other parents who share something like this with friends they have who have all neurotypical children, or children with special needs, and they're like, this gives you an idea.
Yeah.
Of what I have in my life.
It's
And
nice.
helps, it is looks like a shocking mess, because it, like you said, it's kind of nice. It should be
Yeah.
this is my life, and it's fine, it's my life, but this is just so you know.
Yeah. And what isn't in here is my other children.
Yeah, right?
Right? I have two others.
Yourself, really.
Or myself. Yeah. Where's movie night? Where's date night? Where's yeah. Where's my vacation? where's my little getaway to Paris? It's not in there. But it's just kind of.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you all. And this whole place is freezing. I know. Here, take this.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
I really
thank
appreciate it.
you.
Maybe I'll see you at AES.
I'm sure you will. We'll probably drink some wine together.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I mean.